I'm introducing now Jonathan Nebeker, who is the director of Vinci, the enterprise data warehouse for the VA. Jonathan is a collaborator on the P-Scanner project, one of the main subnetworks within the P-Scanner project, and he will tell us all about the VA.
Thanks. So I misread the agenda and I have too many slides, so I'm going to zoom through some of these. Vinci was started about 5 years ago. It's going to its second year, 5-year funding cycle. It originally started out to support natural language processing in the VA and also provide some secure data. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And so here's our mission and vision that you can read. And is this being broadcast? Are these slides being broadcast on the web too? Okay. And so, so I'm going to kind of address some of these issues. So organization, I want to put PCORI up here because Vinci's now in with PCORI. And so you can see the VA has basically 4 different administrations, and all but benefits and cemetery, actually benefits is involved as well, lead down to Vinci, and because they use the tools, and they're also on the board of governors for Vinci. And meanwhile, we've got PCORI and the UCSD-led P-Scanner initiative, and through our VA non-for-profit that is doing work in Vinci as well to make sure that we can be part of that family of products. So this is, I'm just going to go over some of the environments. We basically have, Vinci's sort of like the full service place where you come to do research in the VA. There's still some local facilities depending on where you live in the VA to have your own local server and do research, but for health services research, for some places, which is not exactly my plan, but this is the way it's worked out, that people are more and more being both forced and gravitating to use a centralized computing resource. And so we have all sorts of data here, petabytes of data, then we have a virtualized computing environment where you come and it's secure. We have an extra firewall within the VA firewall because there just is so much. We have records on 25 million veterans, and so there's just so much PHI there that we feel the need for some additional security. There are ways of getting data both in and out of Vinci. And then we have a bunch of different applications that are very familiar to people in the audience here from both the CTSAs and otherwise. We have, just kind of in the middle, we have a lot of NLP applications and various types of epidemiological tools that I'll talk a little bit about as well. So the way this works, the primary source of data in Vinci is, it always does that, is from the corporate data warehouse, which we take data from the 128 odd vistas, so the EHRs around the country, and consolidate those into VISNs, and then we consolidate those further into regions. And then right now, we're in the transition going from a daily refresh to an 8-hour refresh of all the high-value clinical data that the VA has back to Austin for use by researchers or by operations. And so this is kind of interesting, and it gets to the standards issue. So the corporate data warehouse, it really very closely follows. It's a data warehouse. It's not an analytical platform. It very closely follows the structure of the electronic health record. And so it's great because it's high fidelity, but it basically takes all the context in the EHR and blows it all apart into a million atoms of this, star schema. And then you have to, when you do a research project, you have to reassemble all that together. And plus, it's of course not, conforming to any of the standards we've heard about this morning. And so I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing with that. Then we have but then Vinci adds, a lot of other value to these data sets, in that we have some sort of scrub data sets, so it doesn't have PHI, even for natural language processing. And then we have, we're producing, using natural language processing and other ways, additional data sets, such as the microbiology database to standards. The one thing that's kind of interesting, I'm going through the applications we have in Vinci here. One thing that's interesting is when we started Vinci, I had a project. I think it was an AHRQ project, I can't remember. And it was just taking me, it'd already been over a year when I was waiting for approval to get permission to actually get my data. And so, and everybody, there's various data stewards throughout the VA. I mean, VA is, a pretty big organization. And so there's all these data stewards that have their own ideas about how we should handle data, and they were changing the rules about how you access data almost on a monthly basis. And so I said, look, this has got to stop. So we decided to force the issue with technology and say, okay, hey, we're going to help you out. We're going to make this tool, and you can route all the requests for data through the tool, and the data stewards can authorize those requests. And as you can see, this is like an old slide. This is from 2012. We even got it down further to less than. This is now. You're looking at 30 weeks. We're like. 30 days. We're like, wow, this is great. 30 days. So now we're down to less than a week in many cases for turnarounds on the request from where we started was over a year. And so that's an interesting story. And there's all sorts of lessons that I won't bore you with. So on data provisioning, I wonder, did I skip over one of my slides? So on data provisioning, we have 5 data analysts. Because of the protected health information, we don't have good tools installed yet for self-service data that we can that address the authorizations that each individual researcher has to the data. We have our panel of 5 database administrators that handles all the requests and gives the data out. And so you can see that we average about 120 to 150 active requests at any time that we're working on from the field. And we're up to, looks like we plateaued actually, where we're looking around 200, if you got to add these bars together, so around 300 data projects that we actually give people to the field each year from Vinci. And then giving you a little bit more about how Vinci is used. We have about 185 people who are logged on per day, and about 650 unique people who log on per month to use the environment. And you can see we've got 3,700 unique users signed up to use it. And then the project workspaces are an IRB approved protocol that doesn't overlap completely with other IRB protocols. So this is how many active project workspaces we have going on now that we support for the VA community. We also support Institute of Medicine projects and some other projects as well from the outside. And so a little bit more. So in addition to the computing, we also have services that we provide. And Scott Duvall is the associate director of Vinci in the pink shirt back there, is helping with some of these. And so we have, the help tickets we don't have a whole lot of. It's mostly, how do I log on kind of things. I'm sure that you're familiar with those types of questions. The concierge is sort of hand-holding, and we handle about 1,000 of those a year. And you can see once people kind of get the hang of it, they don't need to come back. So there's a lot of unique, one-time requests. So talking about the number of projects actually is interesting because this number doesn't match the other number I just talked about. And then we also do NLP services, annotation service, and a clinical trial service. And this is really kind of a burgeoning service. There's a lot of increased requests for help with these types of projects. So these are people, doctors and PhD, health services researchers, maybe used to using administrative data, are coming to us and say, hey, I need this other type of data that's in the notes because we have, about 2 billion notes, or is it 1 billion? I can't remember. 2 billion notes in the VA, and they want to get the data out of those notes to turn into structured data so they can do the processing. So there are some limitations. We're mostly solving these issues, and we hope that with upgrades to the new Microsoft Windows software, we'll be able to address the logon issues. So here's some more about usage, and I'm going to walk through each of these projects a little bit on their own. The main thing that was really kind of a change from Vinci is we had a lot of resources invested in our investigators throughout the VA to develop their own tools, and so both as my role as associate, chief medical information officer for VA, as well as the director of Vinci. We just got to get away from that kind of investment strategy. We got to go in with the community, and so we're looking to PCORI, to Scanner, to EDM Forum, and others as really our partners to work within these communities to build on each other's work instead of trying to reinvent the wheel a million times to do our stuff. And so this clean formatted stuff right now, that box down there, that's really what we see as OMOP as our primary database. It interops with a lot of different databases. We hope that PCORI will not want to reinvent the wheel again and try to base its stuff on the OMOP as well. But in any case, OMOP's fairly flexible. It can go between the databases, so we hope that works. And then we can develop community-based applications on what we're doing with OMOP. And so again, the whole idea here is to get away from the cottage industry of analysis that we have both in many healthcare systems throughout the country, but certainly in the research industry. Everybody's, they're building the looms, they're going out and shearing the sheep, and then they're carding the wool, and they're like making everything together. So everybody's doing like all this little stuff over and over again. We got to consolidate, work together to do this. So we're really looking forward to working with PCORI and AHRQ and some of the other groups out there. And operations is also very interested in this, VA operations. So I'm just going to go through. So we have this analysis suite. So IEHR, wow, that's still there. So this is now Vista Evolution. So we're partnering our analytical tools also with our EHR revitalization. So I'm also the lead clinician for the Vista Evolution program, in which we're kind of doing our EHR modernization program. So we're trying to use a lot of these tools that we're developing in that area and bring them into the analytical framework as well, and including natural language processing and annotation as well. So annotation, you usually think of natural language processing annotation just for kind of research project, but for VA benefits, if you think about it, we got to determine whether someone has a service-connected disability, and then we got to find evidence for that in a chart and document that, and we got to find the degree to which they have the disability. And so there's lots of common overlap, and so actually one of the features we actually have a contract for is to develop an annotation feature for the electronic health record for VA that can then be used not only by researchers but also by the benefits community. And so this is kind of a notional architecture for where we hope to go with Vinci, and this is really, really notional. And so we're hoping to partner with groups pretty much everywhere after the database layer. And so there's NLP. We have lots of partnerships across the country and world with NLP systems. Semantic normalization, as you know, there was a bunch of ARC projects funded for that, and there's other projects we hope to partner with. Then the canonical database. Right now, it's actually the OMOP is kind of moving into that canonical database, and maybe the place where we materialize other databases. So other databases include HBase and LexisNexis and those sorts of things, as we develop more robust, horizontally scalable systems that also based on open source technology that we can share with the field. And then this is kind of a schematic of how we see the world, where we're going from the data, and then we use EPI tools, and now renamed trust tools, where we use data cleaning and we get the stuff into more information. That's sort of kind of where OMOP fits to some degree. And then we can do some value-added additional variables construction and add those back to the OMOP database as an extension to get higher-level clinical concepts. And then we can do the analysis using reusable tools, transparent reusable tools that the community can all see and they can build on to do that analysis, get the information out. So this is just a front-end user interface that we developed for natural language processing pipelines, and Qing Zhang led this, who used to be with I2B2 and now with the VA. And so it's kind of drag and drop your pipeline together, and you configure each module along the pipeline. So that's kind of nice. The chart reviewer. So this was kind of an older version where it's based on what was our direction for electronic health records. You can annotate all the data, all the structured data, and then relate that to ontologies. And so there's lots of new work going on ontology development. There's a lighter weight version of this. It's more suitable to the research community. And then there's these trust modules that are used to build on top of OMOP. And so basically OMOP gets you the database, and we're using some of these trust modules to do additional data cleaning, especially for research-specific projects. So if you have a chemotherapy project, you might have different imputation and data cleaning and range tolerance rules for both lab values as well as medication values, as you might for a hypertension project. Not that they're having a lot of overlapping medications there, but you can kind of see that there's different projects need their specific tools. And so we're really trying to make second stage data cleaning after you get to the OMOP standard database, secondary data cleaning, and then tertiary analysis. So two types of tools: ones that put the data into a format like a case crossover study or a I can't remember the other study, the other one that we have. but in high dimensional propensity scores, so you generate all these variables that lead into the study. But then we also have highly configurable modules that on top of those, so you can say, okay, when you read the study in this new journal that PCORI is going to be starting, or the new journal that, the EDM forum, it says, this is the analysis that we did. We did a Cox regression with these variables. You actually know what that means, because from that one statement in the methods section, it could be anything that they did, right? And so the idea is to have public code that's reviewed, that people are building on, refining, so we really can build on each other's shoulders. And here's a list of libraries for those that we already have in production, and we're refactoring now to be more strongly linked with OMOP. And this is just an instance of the course generator for medications, whereby you have there's like 62 different variables you can parameterize to get the type of course that you may want for a particular medication. So some of it's a little bit over engineered, but it kind of gives you the idea of the complexity and also what we're trying to do with robustness of these tools. And that is all I've got. I don't know if there's time for questions, but.
Maybe one question or a quick one.
It's more of a comment than a question. I don't know if you saw Clem McDonald's recent letter in JAMA about decreased free time from documenting in an EHR, and the VA physicians were the least affected, so congratulations. With that said, and the fact of using NLP, it just strikes me as odd that we're not focusing more on creating more structured data in a much simpler way.
We are.
And decreased amount of data.
We are.
So you don't have to do as much NLP. So I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.